And yet, it's something that's been around forever, for as long as humankind has been. Last week, I showed you this for the first time, and Aoife had come across this quotation from Meryl Streep. And I don't know if Meryl Streep is a practicing, a mindfulness practitioner. In fact, I really should check that out. But I just thought that when Aoife showed it to me, it absolutely nailed what we're about. Because, I want to feel my life while I'm in it. From a personal point of view, we want to be there for that 100% of the time, rather than the 53% of the time that the Harvard Business Review research in week 1 showed us is the amount of time typically we're present, with the other 47% being missing from our lives, mind wandering, typically worrying about the future, or catastrophizing about the future, or worrying about the past, and not spending time where life is happening, which is in the present. So I'll probably show that slide each week, because I think it's a great guiding principle. So let's start as we always do, and let's start just with a minute or two to arrive. And again, for the people who are joining us, I suggest when you're going in to start a new task at work, when you're going from one task to another, when you're going into meetings, whenever you're transitioning from one to another, it's worth taking a minute or two just to leave behind what was going on outside and fully commit to being in the whatever meeting or whatever present you happen to be in right now. So we take a minute just to disconnect from your lives and everything's going on, and really just bring ourselves into this program for the next hour. So as has become traditional now, I just invite you to just notice your feet on the floor. And I don't mean obviously visualize your feet or look down at your feet, just become aware. Notice that you can allow your awareness to drop down so that you can feel your feet. And become aware of any sensations in your feet. Soles of your feet, where they're in contact with the ground. Is there any tingling? Are they hot? Are they cold? Is there pulsing? Is there itching? How do you know your feet are there? So just any sensations. And by the way, there's no right or wrong set of sensations. And this is not about some kind of esoteric experience. It's just whatever is there is good. And if you notice no sensations, that's okay too. So just sit and just allow yourself, without stressing or straining or trying, just to allow that attention to drop down and notice the feet, just for a few seconds. And now just allow that attention to move gently up to your seat, wherever you're seated, to your behind on the chair. And again, just noticing what sensations are there to notice. And just allowing yourself to settle into awareness of what's going on around your seat. And now let's take a couple of breaths. First one in, nice and slow, and slowly out. As you take that breath in, just follow it all the way in past the nostrils, down into your abdomen, which is rising with the breath, and back out again. Just nicely, gently breathing in. And on the next breath, as you're breathing it in, just bring attention to your body. Is there anywhere you're holding yourself tense? Your shoulders, your jaw clenched? If there's anywhere you're tense or you're holding yourself tightly, just let that part of the body soften. Just let it collapse. Let it relax. And then on the third breath, I invite you to set an intention for this session today. Or maybe set an intention, in fact, for your day in general. what do you want from your day? Not a goal, but just here's what I would like this day to be about. Here's what I would like this next hour in this session to be about. So just taking that breath, letting it out nice and slowly, and we'll carry on. You've seen this sentiment a couple of times, and I'm going to say it again for people who are new there. Think about what you came to this program for, and think about the reality that the research tells us our brains can handle one thing at one time. So if while we're going through the practices here, you're working through your email and you're checking your phone and all that sort of stuff, well then you're not getting what you wanted from this program. So what I'd suggest to you is, if you really want to get the max from this, close down every tab except the one we're on, and just say, hey, for the next hour, I'm just going to invest this hour in me. I'm just going to settle into this session and just give myself this hour just to work upon myself. Put your phone on silent, close the door, and just see if you can use this almost as a meditation, bringing your attention to the session here today. So let me just get up the list of the folks here so that I can see you when you put your hand up or don't. Last week we gave some homework, loosely called, and I'm just wondering, and again, I'm not beating you up, I just wondered how many people got, for example, to get about a single dedicated practice in. So put your hand up if you did a single dedicated practice in during a week. Great, the hands are going up, super. So that's wonderful, and really, these sessions have to be short because people are so busy. Really would love to hear from you what sort of impact it's having. What your experience is with those sessions. In the group, it would be great to hear that. And I think it's really important as we move forward. The attention to breath, the focused attention, is a really critical one of these practices. It's at the heart of a lot of this. And then the body scan is going to become really important as we move through. So I would suggest you try and get into those. What about any of the sort of in the moment or real-time practices, bringing your attention to the teeth, to showering, to shaving, or mindful listening? Great, hands going up, super. And this is, we will talk by the end of it, I'll be saying to you, this is about establishing habits. You have a habit that when you get up in the morning, most of you brush your teeth. Part of your routine, and this needs to become part of the routine, or else it's just theory, or else it's not having an effect for you. So thank you for that. And here's the critical message. I said it last week, and from now on I'm going to say it, most of the weeks. Please find what works for you. So work through the practices and find the ones that are really good for you, that give you something. And those are the ones that I'm going to encourage you as we move through the weeks to carry into your life. What about yesterday? I sent out a mail. In fact, apologies. Yesterday I sent out 2 mails. One of them I just hit send by accident and sent out. The program is happening in 1 hour, so apologies for that. But there was another one that said, "Hey, here's a 3 or 4 minute piece of video." How many people got to have a look at that? And probably a lot of you, yeah, it's going up. That's going up dramatically. Probably a lot of you have seen that before. She's a wonderful speaker, but she has one particular line in there that I'm going to quote later on. I could quote the entire thing, but this just frames some of the discussion that we're going to have today around empathy and compassion and so on. So where we're going, you saw this last week, and for the folks of the people who have come on board, we're focused on individual performance, how to be a leader, whether we're leading people or we're leading opinion or whatever it happens to be, and how to improve our performance in that while at the same time not endangering our well-being. We're using mindfulness and neuroscience as the platform to develop emotional intelligence. And when we talk about emotional intelligence, you've gone through an assessment, a Genos assessment, using the Genos model that looks at your emotional intelligence in 6 scales here, in 6 dimensions, if you like: inspiring performance, self-awareness, awareness of others, self-management, and emotional reasoning and authenticity. Well, this week we're going to start to focus on awareness of others and a little bit of self-management in there. So each week we move around and themes move around. By the end of it, we'll have touched quite substantially into all of the areas. So one of the absolute core bedrock techniques that we've taught here, and we started in week 1, is the focus attention, the breath meditation. And you'll remember maybe that I said to you that the research right now, one of them was from Accenture, said that focused attention, the ability to be able to bring your attention onto whatever you want to bring it onto and leave it there, is, in this world of distraction, the single most effective predictor of individual and organizational success. That is to say, if you can focus, you're ahead of the game. So our focused attention practice, which is at the core of so many of our other practices, is really seminal. It's really, really important. And it's about being able to bring your attention down to a single object. Most of the time it's the breath. Some of the time, if it's mindful listening, it's the other person. And to be able to place it there. And then to notice when the attention has wandered and bring it back. And if it wandered 100 times, bring it back 100 times. And it's developing, I said, like developing a muscle. It's developing that muscle of attention and actually growing that part of your brain, the insula, that is responsible for attention. And that's a really important thing. And it's a really big problem in a world where the Harvard Business Review, you remember the stats, said we spend 47% of our time mind wandering, not focused on anything in particular except the disasters that happened in the past and might happen in the future. So focus is really important. But sometimes focus is not the challenge. Sometimes, in fact, the challenge is that you're too darn focused. And, you know, you can put a hand up if you want to and tell me, you know, have you ever had the situation where you get a thought in your mind, or you get a, you know, usually it's not a positive one, usually a negative one, I beg your pardon, sorry, itchy nose, and you get stuck on it and you start spinning on it. So you get a thought. So give me a show of hands if you've ever been in a situation where you get stuck on a thought and you just cannot get it out of your blasted head, and it's spinning and you're analyzing it and you analyze it. The more you analyze it, the more it spins and so on and so forth. You just get stuck. Well, the next practice that we're going to do, open awareness, is about dealing with that. And there are already elements of the open awareness practice in your focused attention practice, but we're going to introduce an entire program, our entire practice, just for cultivating that ability to be able to notice everything's going on around us. The mental events and the thoughts that are going through our heads, the sounds that are around us, what's going on in our body, but without getting stuck on them, okay? So let's just pile straight into the practice, and then we'll talk afterwards about how you use it and why it's important and so on and so forth. So let's get into that position that I talk about every week, where you're sitting upright, but not stiff, and not to attention. It's not military fashion. And you got your feet planted on the ground. And I'd suggest just before we start, just do a really fast scan, a 2-second scan of your body, and just notice if there's anywhere tight, anywhere you're holding yourself tense like that, just let it go, just let it relax. Put your hands symmetrical somewhere on your lap or in your lap, whichever. And you can close your eyes if it's convenient to do so. If you're in an office and there's other people around, that may not be practical. Just let your eyes fall down to a meter, 3-4 feet in front of you, and with a soft focus. And let's just begin again, just by briefly, and I won't talk you through this, just allow your attention to settle down into your seat and your feet, and just become aware of yourself sitting here and all of the sensations to tell you you're doing that. And let me give you a few seconds just to do that and just settle into that. And notice just that you're sitting here. Allowing your entire attention just to drop down into your seat and your feet. Allowing your body just to let go. So each time you sit down to practice, I suggest that you connect with some kind of intention for doing the practice. Intention is like, we'll see it in fact in another session in a few weeks. It's like putting the coordinates into the GPS of your brain and telling it what you want to do with this practice, and giving it instructions for what you want to achieve from it. And it sets you up for a better experience. So Connect with your intention, and the general intention of this practice is to cultivate the ability to maintain a relaxed attention to everything going on around you, to be present to whatever's happening without getting caught up in any particular thought or sound or thing, without getting caught up in a story. But set whatever tension you want. And let's begin by taking a long breath in and a long breath out, and shifting our entire attention very lightly and effortlessly onto noticing the breath going in and going out. Noticing the breath wherever it's most vivid for you. Maybe the raising of your abdomen, the falling of your abdomen. Maybe you notice that the nostrils going in cold and slightly warmer coming out, but it doesn't matter where you watch it or monitor it, just notice the cycle. And when thoughts or sensations or sounds come up, just noticing, maybe staying distracted, and simply returning your focused attention back to the breath. So let's sit with that for a few moments. And just follow your breath for a few moments, bringing it back anytime you're distracted. Remembering that when you get distracted, be kind to yourself. It's not a failure. It's a natural part of life that you get distracted. A critical part of this practice is to notice and simply return the attention back to wherever you wanted it to be. And for now, that's on the breath, lightly, just noticing it going in and out. And previously, the attention on the breath being centered in there is where we left it for the practice. Now we're going to do something different. We're going to move the attention out and just allow it to expand out to cover not just the breath, but the body as a whole. So just allowing yourself, without straining or stretching or putting in any great effort, allowing your attention just to open up to your body as a whole. And just remain open. And is there anywhere that you feel anything in your body right now? Maybe the contact between the feet and the floor, you're behind on the chair. Is there any tension anywhere? Feelings of hot or cold? Is there anything in the body that's calling your attention right now? And if there's not, that's okay. Just remain open and let anything that chooses to come up to your awareness come up. If nothing comes, just notice that too. So just sit with that for a few moments, just allowing yourself to be open to what's going on in your body. let's widen the scope of our attention even further to include sounds. When you choose to be open to it, do you notice any sounds around you right now, or any sounds calling to your attention? Just allow them to appear if they do, but try not to get caught up in them. Just notice them and let them go. No need to build a story around them. No need to investigate where they're coming from. Just simply noticing, sounds, or body sensation. Not feeling the need to think about them, just being aware of them, letting them come and go as they wish. Sit with that for a few moments. And if you worry you're getting too distracted, you can ground yourself, but just bringing your attention back to the breath for a breath or two. And then again, just open up the awareness, just noticing what calls to you. And again, the intention is to notice those sounds, to notice any sensations in the body, but not necessarily to explore them, build a story around them, or investigate them. Just allow them to arise into your awareness and letting them go. So let's expand the scope of attention a little further to include feelings or emotions. Do you notice any slight or strong feelings going on right now? Maybe you brought some senses or feelings or emotions into the session from something that's going on in your life right now. Maybe it's just a vague flavor of curiosity, or who knows, boredom or anxiety or calm. But just again, just becoming aware. And just allowing the feelings come to your attention and letting them go again. Almost like you're standing in a train station. The feelings or the sounds or the sensations come along like trains and pass you by. You don't feel a need to get on, you don't feel a need to think about where the train is going. They're just happenings. Allow them to go. So just if you notice any feelings come, allow them to come, notice them, don't get caught up with them, let them go. And now, again, just allowing that awareness to get even broader and more open and more free, and be more openly aware. What thoughts and images are coming and going? If thoughts and images appear, just allow them to do so. Notice them. Allow them, let them go. No need to dive into them. Again, the intention is just to notice them. Like the trains on the station, they come, they go, not necessarily to get on board. And now just expanding the awareness a little bit more to include awareness, if you like, of awareness itself. So can you be a third-party observer just noticing this experience going on? you notice that you can just see these sensations, these thoughts, these feelings come and go. Just be aware of the fact that you can watch yourself being aware. Just become aware of that. And now let's just return the attention just back onto the breath for a few breaths. Very light attention, don't make it effortful. The breath is going in and out on its own, you're not trying to force it. Just notice for a few mindful breaths, follow it in and follow it out. So having scanned and experimented with a few of the different sorts of things we can become aware of, let's now just allow our awareness to open to whatever comes up. You might still be aware of the breath, but it's no longer necessarily the primary focus. And just allow yourself to notice whatever happens. So you may notice thoughts going on, sensations, sounds coming and going, arising and passing away. And just be in that open space where they come, you notice them, and they pass on. Not focusing on any one thing, not making stories around anything that comes, but simply resting in that sort of clear, open awareness where thoughts and sensations and sounds and anything else come, and you just let them go. And for a few minutes, just notice whatever you notice. The thoughts, the sensations, the sounds, just let them come and go like clouds in a clear blue sky. Just be open to let whatever happens, happen. Whatever arises, just notice it, be open to it, and allow it to go. So now, let's bring our attention back to focus on the breath, letting awareness of those other things just fade to the background, breathing in and out. So now if your eyes closed, fully open the eyes, but see if you can bring that awareness of what's going on around you to whatever you notice when the eyes are open, taking in the sights in the room. And if your attention is pulled here or there, just watch and notice where it goes, almost like watching a dog running around the park as it explores different areas. And as we come to the end of the practice, try to continue noticing, make a few little movements maybe. Notice those. Move your shoulders, stretch your back. And can you notice what's filling your awareness as you move and as we come back into the session? So, folks, that is a shorter version of the practice that we give you in the recording this week. And that is one of my favorite practices, and it's one of the most useful practices for dealing with challenging situations, difficult thoughts, and when your mind just runs away with it, with itself. And we're going to revisit it in future sessions, but I would encourage you before next week to get the recording and give it a go. We'll have that up there by tomorrow, and try it in your practice. So let me move on, because we have a fairly full schedule for today. Here's the practice that will be in your booklet this week, and you'll have the recording. You'll notice again We started with the seat and feet. We didn't do the 6 breaths this time. We set an intention. We started with the attention to breath, and then we did the open awareness. And notice the way we do that graduated chilling. The attention to seat and the feet is about bringing us present. When you're paying attention to your seat and your feet, because we're single taskers, no matter what we think, we cannot multitask. Once you're there, you're present, and then we build on that. It's often referred to as natural meditation, and I think of it as being kind of wide angle versus telephoto. Telephoto for the focus and attention, and wide angle for the open awareness. And you're just bringing attention to whatever comes up. And sometimes what comes up is that voice in your head that criticizes you, and that's something we're going to come back to later on. So let me keep moving. Awareness of others. This is a huge topic, and empathy right now. I'm going to show you a stat in a moment. Empathy is one, it's a critical human faculty, but two, it's something that is really getting a lot of attention right now as something that is really, really critical to our mental health, but it's also critical to our commercial health and our organizations. So let's have a look at what empathy is, apart from the little giggle that we might have at this. There's an outfit in London who have created what they call the Empathy Global Index. And I won't go into the detail of how to create it, but essentially they create an index of how empathetic companies are. And then they've ranked them. And what you've got here was reported in Harvard Business Review are the rankings from 1 to 100, according to how empathetic the organizations are. And the key thing I just want you to notice is that the top companies in the 2015 index increased in value more than twice as much as the bottom 10 and generated 50% more earnings. Empathy is something which is not just a nice thing to have, it pays off. Average earnings among the top 10 were up 6% in that year, while the average earnings of the bottom 10 dropped 9%. So that's empathy is something that is not just about being a nice guy. Now, I want to introduce a concept, and I'm going to move really, really quickly. It's just, I want to define a word. In this work, you'll often hear people talk about suffering. And we may have ideas of what suffering is. For the purpose of mindfulness and mindfulness study and so on and so forth, and the material that we're dealing with, you're suffering when you're anxious, when you're depressed, when you're worried about what people are thinking about, when you feel resentful, when you feel impatient. And sometimes we feel, shoot, with all the real suffering in the world, this is really first world stuff, isn't it, guys? That sometimes we feel that, and so we minimize it, and we say, feeling sad, that's not really suffering. But the reality is, when your mind is flying, when you're feeling jealous, when you're bored, when you're irritated, you're embarrassed, you are suffering. And a lot of what we do is about alleviating suffering. So when I talk about suffering, this is what I mean. When I talk about suffering in others, it's when they're anxious, when they're depressed, when they're worrying about people, what people think about them, and so on. So I invite you, if you have your report, to open it up very quickly to the awareness of others section and look at what people told you about your awareness of others, about your empathy, and because you notice at the high end of that scale that we talk about awareness of others, when you demonstrate all of those emotional intelligent behaviors, you are experienced as being empathetic. Now, there are 7 behaviors we have in here that define how an emotionally intelligent person shows up looking empathetic. I'm going to focus in on a couple. And I would just say to you, look at your scores on from the people around you on the extent to which you notice when somebody else needs support and you respond effectively, where the extent to which you accurately view situations from the perspective of others, and the extent to which you accurately anticipate responses or reactions from others, because those are really tuning into that core capacity of empathy. So have a look at that. And if the scores are less than you would like them to be, and indeed, if with the importance of the demonstrator ratings, if they're less than the people who are working with you would like it to be, well, then there's a great case for spending some time working on your empathy muscle. Now, I'm going to play you a piece of video now. It's going to take about 4 minutes, a little bit less than 4 minutes. And here's what I read, and please commit to this, and don't, if you can, try not to be looking at anything else. Give 100% of your attention. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to open up and put yourself into the seats of the people, into the skins, if you like, of the people in this video. This is an experiment that was done, I think, in Germany. And essentially, it's based on the fact, you know, it was developed by Amnesty International at a time when we in Europe were getting a lot of refugees coming into Europe, and the reaction wasn't always that gracious from all of us in Europe. And so what they wanted to do was to try and get people feeling into how other people felt. So they did an experiment based on a psychological precept that said that we can feel into other people's suffering. And they sat groups of people, a European and a refugee, down facing one another, and they told them, we're going to give you 4 minutes of silence, and you just look at one another. And they invited them just basically to look at one another. And I'd just like you to just see if you can put yourself into the skins of the people in this video. Let me say no more. Let me just play it. And Aoife, you can give me a thumbs up or some kind of a message, just that the sound is coming across okay. Oh, that was me.
Are you new in Berlin?
Yeah, 8 months.
And are you alone here or with your family?
No, I don't. This life, sometime nice, sometime not good.
I'm keeping my eyes on you. Oh. Hello. I expect him to ask my number. Be a strong man.
Thank you so much.
to the zoo. Maybe next this few days. I'll text you if you would like to.
I would love it. Of course, you can do it.
When I was looking into her eyes, I was trying to see what I could tell from the life that she lived, and I think I could tell that there was a lot of experience lived there.
It doesn't matter, look at the eyes or something, just give yourself a chance to talk and to look at the other person.
Let me just ask you, by a show of hands, did anybody feel that shift? Did you feel some of the emotions that people were feeling there just by tuning in? Yeah, good, great, thank you. The feedback is coming back. That's, you know, just notice that you can actually feel. All they did was they set them up just to look at one another for a few minutes. Now, I'm going to introduce you to the concept. Basically, the part of the brain where we feel pain, okay? Here it is. We don't need to dive into what particular part it is and so on and so forth, but this is what the part of the brain that lights up when we feel pain. Here's the part of the brain that lights up when we see somebody else feeling pain, when we see somebody else experiencing pain. And if I just click on this and let you, I want you just to notice on the left-hand side, I'm going to superimpose the brain from the right-hand side and the left-hand side, just so that you see these are actually the same area. Notice, watch the little bit of morphing that goes on here. Notice that? So bottom line is that the we experience, when we choose, when we open up, when we say we are prepared to feel with somebody else, we tap into the same part of our brains that are the same part of our brains lights up as are lit up on the person who's feeling the pain or feeling the suffering. So what you were feeling there when you felt any sort of sense of sadness or joy or whatever in that was as a result of the choice you made to be empathetic. The key thing is you are equipped to feel other people's pain. You're equipped to feel into other people's suffering, but we've tended to close that down and it's less obvious in us. So Brene Brown said in the video that I invited you to look at, she said, empathy is a choice and it's a vulnerable choice. And we're going to look at why it's vulnerable next week. But the main thing I want you to take from this is you are equipped as a human being. You're equipped to feel other people's suffering and pain, to appreciate where they're coming from. You are naturally empathetic. It's just the way you're built, but there's a choice. You made the choice when we put the video on. You said, I'm going to open up. You can make the choice in every situation in your life. And we're going to continue into empathy and compassion a little bit more next week. But that's just the first piece of that. So that is very much to be continued. Now, I was going to do another brief 3-breath practice. And I just noticed my time has slipped away. I'm going to record that. It is literally a sort of 3-minute, 1 to 3 minute practice. And I'm going to flip past it now and I'm going to record it as a bonus recording and put it up for you just so that I keep us absolutely on time. And it's specifically designed for times when your head is just wrecked, when you're just going crazy. So directly after this session, I'm going to record it and I'm going to put it up for you separately. So let me move into this. So I just as I say, to keep us on time, I'm going to bring Aoife in and just ask her if she has any housekeeping stuff that we want to do with regard to the group. And by the way, last time I looked, it was 351, so it's great that it's up to 370. Aoife.
Hello there, yes. Okay, so sorry, Deiric, were you saying you wanted to talk questions first, or?
Yeah, let's do the questions and then any other housekeeping.
Perfect. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't wiping away a few tears. I've seen that video I don't know how many times, and it gets me every single time.
Likewise.
So powerful. We just have one actually, Deiric. Angie's asking, some people are known empaths.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, some people are known as that. Yeah, you know, some people, here's the key thing. When we deal with the Genos model, what is the language we use for what we measure? We say demonstrated emotional intelligence. and we look at the extent to which other people find you empathetic, other people find you present, other people find you resilient, and other people judge how emotionally intelligent you are by the behavior you demonstrate. The reality, Angie, is we are all empathetic. We are all equipped for it. Not all of us make the choice to tune into that, and some are not even aware of it, and the majority of people don't demonstrate that empathy. So you're right, some people have made that choice, and it's the way they're wired, that they demonstrate that care for others and the fact that they're feeling your pain. But the critical point that I want to make this week is we are all equipped for it, and we can tune into that capability.
Mm-hmm. Angie just shared with us as well that sometimes it can be absorbing, meaning we get too involved in others' lives. I think I agree with that one.
Totally. Angie, next week we touch into that, because the reason that I use that quotation from Brene Brown is you're absolutely right. You really can. You look at the way some nurses, social workers, anybody who works with the vulnerable in the world, care workers. I did some work with some UN care workers at one stage, and they are so open and so empathetic sometimes that they get what is called empathetic distress or empathetic burnout. So you're absolutely right. And that's why I use that expression from Brene Brown. It is a vulnerable choice. And next week, we're going to look at how can you make that vulnerable choice to be empathetic and compassionate to people without hurting yourself, without that burnout. And the good thing is there's a lot of research behind it, and we have a great practice for it. So we're going to look at that next week.
So that might tie into the next question, Deiric. Will other people not take advantage when they know you're empathetic?
Well, you know what? Let me really, really clear. Empathetic is not being a pushover or being a softie or being easy to take advantage of. Empathetic is being open to being aware of what other people are feeling, what other people are thinking, being able to tune into their perspective and then make the right decision. So will people try to, unfortunately, human nature, there are people in the world who try and take advantage of you. But becoming more empathetic does not make you a mug. It does not make you automatically a victim. It's still a choice. You still have a choice in how you behave when you've tuned into and you've taken on the information of what it is that other people are feeling. But we will explore that more in next week and the week after.
Okay. On that same comment, I believe it's pronounced Joke, and excuse me, that's why I wasn't. Joke just said, "You're not saying my name. I look out for that to check empathy." A lot of times on these webinars, I'm so concerned I'm going to, pronounce someone's name wrong. That's okay. So it's Joke. Well, thanks for your comment, but it's only out of respect for not mispronouncing someone's name that sometimes I don't try to. So I appreciate it. Raphael, being empathetic doesn't unroot us. Agreed.
Yeah.
And then Graham shares, Deiric, I assume the same is true for those parts of the brain that relate to emotions other than pain, like love and happiness.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, remember, and I think that video was really good because it allowed you to tune into some of the suffering and the stress. I mean, when that Syrian lady started crying, God Almighty, every time I see it, it just pulls at me. But then when that English guy Lee at the end, man, he had a smile that would light up a street. When he smiled, God, you could feel the joy spread through you. So that ability to sense into people's joy and into people's pain is entirely human. So yeah, absolutely right. And so I use the pain example just simply because that's where they've tended to do most of the research, because it's very hard to find something that so you got pain and you got suffering, and they can measure what the brain looks like when it's in pain, and it's the response of the brain is so great that it makes it easy. But bottom line, yes, brain. At the end of the day, it is exactly the same whether it's joy or happiness or pain. Perfect.
And then Deiric, Graham is asking, what is the link between intuition and empathy then?
I'm not sure I'd make an overt link, and I'm not aware of any. I'm not aware of any research that makes that link. But let me tell you what Goldman defines intuition as, and he defines it as the wisdom of emotions, and he talks about a part of the brain called the basal ganglia. And he says that basically, as you have experiences, every experience in your life, every decision you make and how it turns out is an emotional experience. And we kind of store away those emotional reactions we have to decisions and the events in our lives in that part of the brain called the basal ganglia. So when we reach another situation and we get this intuition, we get this sense that, oh, I think I should go this way. My gut tells me I should go this way. There are a lot of things going on, but one of the things he says is that you basically tuned into that Rolodex, if you like, of all of those previous experiences where you made a similar decision and you had a particular emotional reaction to them. And it happens so quickly and we're so unaware of it that we call it intuition. But let me make a connection that I haven't seen in the science, but that is obviously there. You are going to, if you collect the data through empathy of how somebody else is feeling in a decision situation, you're about to change the way somebody's work is structured. If you feel into how they feel about it, well, then that data is going to make the decision you make, the intuition that you employ for your past experiences, a much more accurate assistant in making decisions. That's the only connection I would make.
Perfect. Derek, Orla's asking, would you have any comment on working with leaders or managers who don't see the benefit of empathy or the ability to be empathetic? They see it as soft.
Yeah, Orla, you absolutely nailed it. The world is full of people with my color hair who see it exactly like that. You mentioned something like empathy and the shutters come down. And that's the reason why, remind me, Aoife, we'll share a couple of other stats in the group. That's the reason why at the beginning, if I'm talking to leaders in-house, I will always show them some of the stats of why empathy works from a business point of view. Empathetic organizations get better results than non-empathetic organizations. Empathetic leaders get better ratings and better engagement from their people. So there are stats out there that link empathy and compassion directly to bottom line results. So I wouldn't try and convince people with anything except the numbers. And I'll share a couple of those slides. I'll get Aoife to remind me to share a couple of those slides. But an old boss of mine had an expression. He said, a man or a woman convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Don't push against it. This is a wave that is coming, that is going to wash over everybody. Everybody will appreciate its importance in the fullness of time.
Yeah.
Folks like yourself are looking at it now.
Perfect. And actually, Derek had a blog post last week about that connection, that empathy and manager and leaders results that he shared. So we've been putting out a lot of content lately. So I think almost forgot that we had published that. That's in the LinkedIn group, Orla, and I'll make a note and to make sure you have access to that as well.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. And then Marie-Cécile asks, we saw that kids are already equipped for being empaths. How can we protect them against strong emotions, absorbing the emotions of others? Or is it just about making them aware of what empathy is about?
Wow, gee, there's a question that you could spend an entire session on. But we all start off utterly open. I have a little 16-month grandson, and my God, talk about an empath. Every emotion that comes up in you is reflected in him, and we all have that capability, but we built some protections around ourselves on that. So how do you protect the kids? I think first off, how do you maintain that sort of level of empathy? You model it. So you create the environment where you interact with them the way you'd like them to interact with the world. How do you prevent them from getting hurt? You know what? You're not actually going to be able to prevent them from getting hurt. And by getting hurt, and taken advantage of, just like us, they learn that, to bring that other critical faculty in, that be empathetic, be open, be empathic, but also be aware that there are people who will take advantage of it. But so my biggest advice to anybody with young children is just model the behavior you want from them. And by the way, if you're practicing or you're getting into the practice in this program of mindfulness practice, there is a great book if you've got little kids called Sitting Like a Frog. And it's designed for parents for introducing to kids simple emotional education, teaching them how to be empathetic, how to deal with their emotions, how to deal with anger. Because kids, you've often seen when they throw tantrums, they're full of anger. And full of excitement, and everything is larger than life. And it's a lovely, lovely book with some recordings in it. Sitting Like a Frog.
Could you repeat that name, Deiric? Sit Like a Frog?
It's either Sit Like a Frog or Sitting Like a Frog. But if you put that into Amazon, trust me, there's not another book that sounds like it. Sitting Like a Frog, and it's mindfulness for the parents of young children.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, I think that's all the questions we have for now. So folks, if you have any more, type them in there. I'm just going to touch on, for those of you, there's a lot of folks going through this program, and we've been making sure that some of you, we gave some extra time to complete your Genos EI leadership assessment. So if you don't have your report yet, and you're wondering where that is, shoot me an email. I've just put my email there in the chat box. It's afa.gory@genosinternational.com, and we'll get those reports over to you if you haven't already got it. Okay.
Super, thanks, Aoife. So after this week, all the material will be published. It'll be tomorrow after the second session today. We'll update the practice handbook so that it'll then have 8 practices. It'll include the latest one, open awareness, 8 recorded practices, the 4 recorded sessions, and so on and so forth. And again, let me just ask you: you come across an article, you think, "Wow, I just found a great piece on empathy posted in there." You come across a book and you're thinking, "Gee, why didn't Deiric mention X book posted in there?" If you got any comments about the program or questions or suggestions, posted in there, because you are the value in that group. So yeah, enough said. Your homework, such as it is, here's what I suggest. 1, set an intention that over the next short while you're going to solidify a habit. And here's what you need to do, I think, before next week, is figure out, when can I squeeze 5 to 15 minutes into a day? Is it first thing in the morning by getting up earlier? Is it when I come in first thing in the evening? Is it in lunchtime? When is it? Because one of the keys to success with this is putting something in a way that you can establish a routine. And if you do it at a different time every day, it's just a little bit more effortful. So I would say, set the intention as you're leaving this session to solidify your practice habit. Read the descriptions of the practices in the group and see which ones meet you where you are right now, which ones speak to the challenges you have. Look at what it says in the booklet is the intention for each of those practices, and experiment with them. Which ones feel right? You don't have to dive into 8 of these practices. If you're working with breath awareness alone, cool. If you're working with the body scan, that'll be really good for some of the resilience stuff and the stress management stuff we're going with during the week. But just experiment around and see, what do you get most from? Because different strokes, different folks. Try and mix some real-time practices. And it can be difficult when your mind's flying. When I have a lot going on at the moment because I'm going to be out of the office after Wednesday. And this morning I was trying to pay attention when I was showering, and I found it terribly hard. And thinking how smugly sometimes I sit on this session and say, just bring attention to various body parts when you're showering. I know it's not easy, but the fact that you notice that you're having difficulty, you're noticing, you're meditating, you're being mindful. And then finally, we're going to put up a John Kabat-Zinn video. It is freaking outstanding on open awareness, and we're going to put an interview up with that we did with Gail Van Gils, who is an author of a book called Happiness at Work, and it's really a lovely interview. That will be in the next couple of days. But the John Kabat-Zinn piece, please, 4 or 5 minutes, outstanding. Give you great insight and some great analogies for thinking about open awareness. Next time, we're going to continue with empathy and compassion. We're going to do a compassion practice. And we're going to think about personalizing your stack, starting to build up your own practice. So apologies for galloping like a horse towards the end. I do actually rehearse these sessions for time, but sometimes you get into it and it just doesn't work according to the best laid plans. So unless there are any other questions there, we are going to sign off, and we'll see you next week, please God. Any more questions on there?
I think we are good to go. Thanks for your time, everyone.
See you later, folks. Thank you so much, and thanks for staying with us. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.